Hello and welcome to our devotional for today. We're in Philippians chapter 1 verses 12 and 13. Paul continues by saying this: I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel, so that it has become known throughout the whole imperial guard and to all the rest that my imprisonment is for Christ. He wants to tell this church that he's trying to encourage that what has happened to him, his being locked up, his being in prison, which might be quite discouraging for them. Those who trust him, who have been led by him, who might have become Christians because of his influence, suddenly he's in prison and that might be quite discouraging for them. They might even question some of the things that he's taught them. Okay, you've brought good news to us, but bad things are happening to you. What does this mean? And he wants to reframe it for them. He wants to give them a different framework, a different lens, the lens of Jesus and the lens of the gospel. How God's been able to use this situation for him, being in prison, to actually tell the good news to more people. That what seems like a setback in the eyes of the world is turned on its head, it's turned upside down in this new gospel culture. Actually, what's been really hard for him has been good for the advancement of his message, of this gospel that he's got from Jesus. And this is something that we can learn from as well. Notice he says, really, it really serves. It looks bad, but really what's going on is God's using this for good. That's a theme throughout Scripture. One of the most famous verses in the Bible is in Romans 8, where Paul himself is saying, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. All things. And so just the good stuff and the blessings, and then the sufferings are really just a chance for us to tell God to give us blessings and he gives us more. No, all things, all of these things will work together for the good of those who fear God, those that love him. And this is maybe not always the most encouraging thing to hear if you're personally going through something right now. Just to say, well, just so you know, he can use it for good, might not be what you need, because you're still in the bad. It's still evil. Another scripture that comes to mind on this is the story of Joseph, which many of us will know. He gets abused and sent into slavery by his brothers, sold into slavery. And when talking to them about this situation, at the end of it, once he's been set free from slavery and vindicated by God, he says to them, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. So notice, it's still evil, what happened to him, the horrible situation, and yet God was able to use it for good. And that framework in the Christian's life is really key. So what is it? What's the situation for you at the moment that seems difficult or dark? It doesn't have to be as extreme as being in prison. It might be a work situation, financial difficulty, relational difficulty. What is it that you are struggling with? And what Paul would say is, let's reframe this in the light of a God who's in control. Let's reframe this in the light of a God who's so in control, so sovereign, that he's able to use even the evil things for our good. We've been singing in a song a lot recently, all is mine. Yeah, not I, but the Christ in me. All is mine. That comes from a scripture as well. That comes from something that Paul writes. All is mine. All of it works for my good somehow, for the good of God's people in general, for the good of the gospel that goes out and blesses others. God's able to use all of it for good. And in the knowledge of that, in the peace that comes from knowing God, I can cast my cares on you daily, that you might bear these burdens. Firstly, that I might know comfort in them, but also because I can trust that even in things that I wouldn't have done, you're working for good, for the good of those around me. What is it in your life? What do you need to give to him to cast your cares onto him this morning? And what is it that he might be doing through it? We don't always know. We don't always get to know this side of heaven, but it can always bring comfort to us as Christians to know that God can use it for good. So take some time. Bring that, however small, however big, that thing that you're struggling with, to Jesus right now after this video, and really give it to him in a way that trusts him with it, even if it continues, that he will use it for good. God bless.